是叶瑞生，是这个下半场的主持人，希望大家刚才的茶点已经喝了好茶，然后吃了好点哦，然后我们现在可以开始接下来的这个重头戏。那么在我们还没有开始之前呢，这一个讲座呢是由林连玉基金主办，然后城邦协办这个活动，然后另外有5个团体是这个协办单位就包括这个华研研究中心，小华堂，雪龙广西会馆、雪龙南安会馆和雪龙广东会馆所以5个组织协办这一场讲座。在我们还没有开始之前呢，让我先邀请这个林连玉基金的学术委员会的主任黄建平博士来先致辞，然后跟大家介绍一下这个林连玉讲座的这个历史背景博士。
主持人的背景是什么
？OK， 我是叶瑞生，然后我一直以来都是参与这个社会运动主要是民主人权的课题那么我曾经是刷浪的执行长，大马人民之声也是这个不是金贤盟的执行长，曾经已经下台了。然后我也曾经在泰国工作，跟一个亚洲的人权组织叫做Asia Forum for Human Rights and Development，就是在曼谷所以我在曼谷4年也跟很多这个教授里面提到的很多人物都有接触好，谢谢。那么我先请黄建平博士。
谢谢瑞生，各位前辈、各位朋友，大家下午好林连玉讲座呢，我们主办的原因呢，就是要纪念林连玉先生，同时呢传播学术新知这个活动呢是在1991年就开始创办，邀请国际知名学者呢、专家到来访问跟讲学。那么到底有哪一些人曾经来过呢？我想我们可能很多都已经淡忘了。我们看一下，这个呢可以算是林连玉基金过去的一个辉煌因为请来的真的都是一些名人专家。当然这个呢是我们在办的时候呢有列了3个主要的宗旨第一个是强调学术研究，第二个呢是希望能够激荡一下思想的火花，还有呢就是能够用国际的视角来看待问题，这是我们的3个主要的原因。91年谁来过呢？我们请了3位，就是包括了杜祖仪、魏维贤，还有呢是严炳瑜，都谈的都还是教育的课题了教育的课题。然后我应该说生也晚还不知道那时候呢林连玉基金有办这样的活动这些课题呢我们都是非常感兴趣92年那时候呢杨振宁还在美国，所以我们挂名是美国今天他回到中国去了，和王正固老师教授呢过来。93我们请了高希均过来。94领导做当时候台湾的教改的李元哲教授也来过。然后95年呢是余英时教授来96年呢请了3位，沈青松、蔡松林，还有呢金耀基，这些呢都是当时候呢在国际知名的学者了97和98，97呢是中国的李中华教授，98呢是石之瑜、去海源， 大多数谈的呢都是教育的课题。99年柳存人，还有呢2000年呢政治啦。那我发现呢这段时期呢，大多数都是30年代出世的这些学者专家啦那么到了2000年过后呢，我们就开始慢慢有点转变。为什么呢？因为要办讲座，已经很多团体都可以办了，也不需要说早期呢可能会比较少，就开始呢很多人都可以办了以后呢，我们这个林连玉讲座可能就要重新想过我们的定位了所以2000年过后呢，我们看到的是02年呢请的是龚鹏程校长，03年邱立本，04陈海东。那么06呢，请了魏书生老师过来。那么08年比较轰动的呢是余光中教授来。过后呢就拖到2012年、13、14，我们看到呢这时候呢，我们这个感觉上这个讲座呢已经不像以前这样子请的呢是大家都期盼着能够见到的人呢，让我们林连玉基金请过来了。15年比如说香港的陈建明教授，固然是非常重要的这个教育工作者了但是我们看到说，在这一段期间一直到现在呢，他都不知道往返马来西亚多少次了。很多团体都可以请他，特别是我们在疫情过后呢，线上讲座呢更加普遍，所以我们就一直在思考着呢，我们下来这个林连玉讲座呢，应该要怎么样子呢去转变。所以这次呢，我们算是一个比较特别的尝试了因为过往呢，林连玉讲座呢是我们的招牌活动都在林连玉基金办的。今年第一次呢，我们接受城邦的邀请，说跟他们一起联办。我们是希望呢能够尝试跟外面团体一起联办呢，打开一下这个我们的 networking。这个是一个新的尝试啦，但是效果怎么样呢？我们过后再检讨。我们也欢迎呢，大家可以的话呢，给我们提供意见，给我们推荐这些人选让我们把林连玉讲座呢办得更有意义、更有价值。谢谢大家。
Hello， 好，谢谢王先炳博士。那么接下来呢，我们将进入这个讲座的这个阶段。那么这个讲座过后呢，我们会有一个问答的时间。讲座应该是1个小时，然后我们会有半个小时的这个问答时间那么这个讲座呢，叫 Professor Kanokrat， 他会用英文来主讲，然后问答的时间呢，你们可以用中文或者英文来问，然后我会尽量的翻译给教授了解你的问题或者是你的意见都可以所以接下来的流程是这样Now the following session is the talk, and then it will be followed with a question and answer sessions in which I will be the moderator as well as translator. So the audience will be able to ask questions in English or in Mandarin, and I'll also translate it for professor to understand the questions or the comments made by the audience. Okay, so please take the opportunity to pose your questions. Okay, so now let me invite Professor Kanokrat to begin the talk. Let me introduce a bit about Okay, as you know, if you have this book, the introduction of the background of Professor Kanokrat Lertchoosakul, she holds BA with honors in international relations from Chulalongkorn University, and then further her study in MA development studies in University of Leeds, UK, and then pursued her PhD in government studies at London School of Economics and Political Science, LSE, and she's now the associate professor for Faculty of Political Science, Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok, Thailand. Now, so over to you, Professor Kanokrat, for your presentation of the book.
Thank you very much. I probably have 50 minutes or something. I'm not going to talk about the whole book because I think it's going to be more interesting if we can go back and look at the details. I try to bring my book to the more contemporary political situation and help you not only understand the old left but also the current situation in Thailand as well, which may help you to understand Malaysia more after looking at Thailand as a case studies. Okay. I'm not gonna ruin this plant. Okay. As I've already mentioned, from the very beginning of my life, I've started asking questions that how the old left survived in the changing world without the leftist political party or leftist movement. So, if you look at the lesson that we learn from other countries in Southeast Asia, it seems like a very polarized picture between the very successful picture of the communist parties and movement and those fail, being suppressed, terminated, disappear, or have been marginalized. We have been very familiar with these two cases, right? In Vietnam and Laos, that the Communist Party in both countries, either Communist Party of Vietnam or Laos People Revolution Party, successfully control the government since 1975 up until today. It seems like there's a very successful role model of the Communist Party in Southeast Asia. But on the opposite story, look at all the long list of this country. None of this country, Communist Party, would be able to win over either the authoritarian government or the liberal democracy. I'm gonna start with where are we now? In this country, Malaysia, Singapore. I don't think we even remember the name of the Communist Party for the younger generation, right? Malayan Communist Party, they fought as a guerrilla movement since 1948 and never gained the widespread support. Never. You name the reason. I'm not going to touch upon the reason, but you name them. And eventually the Communist Party defeated. Several migrated to the southern Thailand. Many of our old comrades with very respectable reputation died in Thailand. Some would be able to come back, some would not. It's the same like in Brunei. I think it's very hard to find the evidence of the Communist Party in Brunei. This is the first group where totally failed. The second group is in my country, Thailand and Indonesia. It's pretty similar. We have big communist party. We have a very powerful communist movement at certain period. We have been very successful in localized Thainized communist party, and Thai people very accept the role, and they have a very wishful thinking with the communist party, whether in Thailand or in Indonesia. However, in both countries, the communist movement and party encounter the same situation, the very strong communist insurgency supported by Western world supported by the authoritarian government in their own country or the very traditional elites. And at the end, these both communist parties were crushed, suppressed, and banned. On the last group is very interesting. In Myanmar and in Cambodia, the past communist party were very successful. But at the end, it's transformed into something which have no clue that it used to be Communist Party, right? In Myanmar, at the beginning, the military dictatorship that we know now used to name themselves as a Socialist Party. But in the reality, after that, it turned to something which have nothing related to socialism at all. In Cambodia, the same thing. Khmer Rouge, even though they succeed, but later on it has been rejected by the whole, even the socialist community. The later government under the hand of Hun Sen, which used to be a part of the communist movement in Vietnam, transformed itself into something far away from the communist or socialist things. This is the third criteria that we have seen. The last one may be pretty promising, like Philippines and East Timor, that even nowadays we still see the active communist groups like Communist Party or New People Army, legal leftist parties, but they are very marginal. They try to participate in recent politics, in electoral democracy, but they were very small, right? Many of your friends I know in Philippines still politically active, but still very not possible for them to take control of the government. In East Timor, it's very interesting. Fertilin, the liberation movement, from the beginning they have been oriented with the socialist ideas, but with the support of the Western world. My question is, where are the people who used to be a part of Communist Party? Where are they? If the Communist Party have already disappeared, where are they? Are they still a part of the recent politics? How can we understand them? So I use the case of Thailand as the initial state to understand where are the old leftists, what are their contributions, or what are the deficits that they have done to the later political development. I mentioned earlier in my initial speech that this project began through my personal passion and disillusion with the Communist Party. So I try to understand a person like my father, who called himself as the old left, the octoplist, but still very active in politics. During the 1992 democratic movement, he brought me along with him to the protest. But for me, he is not the leftist. He's a democratic fighter. Under the social movement of the Assembly of the Poor and later political reform in 1990s, many of my senior friends, you know many of them well, they're active in political reform as a political reformist, as a liberal democratic fighter, not the leftist. And during the fight between the red shirt and yellow shirt, the person like my father, who used to tell me about how the state suppressed, turned to support the loyalist movement. So in answering this question, I try to follow the footsteps of this ex-leftist. I interviewed more than around 200 old leftists, ranging from leadership, like those who will show the pictures, like Thirayut Bunmi, Seksan Pasarpun, and many people, etc. But I also look at ordinary leftists who just provide support and no name in the history. I look at different gender, female, male, and many LGBT turn to become more radicalized. Between 1996 and 1996, 3 and 1996, these young people become the political hero in the country. I interview many of them this young student can even pick up the phone to call the prime minister to negotiate for the salary for the labor in Bangkok. So they were very powerful. However, they were very frustrated with the liberal democracy between these 3 years because it's a big chaos. It's the first time that Thai has a liberal democracy, have election, have a weak government. So it seems like for them, democracy was very unstable. And democracy would not be able to deliver the immediate needs for the poor people. And by that time, if you look at the global phenomenon in Southeast Asia, between 1976 and 1973 to 1976, it was the beginning of the domino effect of the communism in Southeast Asia, right? In Cambodia, Khmer Rouge won. In Laos, the monarchy in Laos were overthrown by the Communist Party. In Vietnam, won over America. What's about Thailand? It's become the next threat. People start questioning whether the communist movement will expand to Thailand. So for these young people, with the frustration with the liberal democracy, for them they look up to the communist movement. It's the only real possible to change Thailand radically, because Thailand has no official colony. We always have the king. So we have never changed radically, right? The problem is there. So for them, the only means at that time to change the whole problem is to change the whole political structure. And communist movement is the only answer for them at that time. So between the three years, the student movement maybe from the beginning were liberal, were a bit conservative Buddhism, were new left, influenced by America. They start to be more unified and turn into very radical Maoist communist movement. Between that 3 years, during the summer school, many of them start to join the summer school in the military camp of the Communist Party of Thailand in the jungle. In the southern Thailand, which have been influenced by the Malaya Communist Party, many of them start to learn about communists in the south, in the northeast. So many of whom I interviewed start to be a part of the communist movement already. And the Thai government, if you think about the Thai government, is very scary, particularly the traditional elite. The monarchy in Laos were overthrown a few years before that. So it's approaching Thailand. So the Thai conservatives join hands and start to use the violence suppressed against the student who used to be liberal and then turned into socialist, into communist. And because of the strong support by the Chinese Communist Party, the Communist Party of Thailand become bigger and bigger, become more resourceful. So at the end, we saw the last in 1976. The Thai government directly and indirectly organized the mass conservative, not the military themselves. They organized the right-wing mass ordinary people, run into the university, start killing students one by one. This is a very symbolic picture that the alive student will have date and people were laughing. The government instruct ordinary people that killing communists is not a sin. Even the monk, the conservative monk, start preaching on television, on radio, that killing communists is a merit, is not a sin. So the whole massacre project began on that day. Of course, unlike in Indonesia or during the Communist Party of Khmer Rouge, there was not that real mass killing. Only 100 people were massacred on that day, but that was more than enough to convince the young people that it's not possible to live in the city anymore. So after that day, around 3,000 to 5,000, in reality it's about 10,000 to 20,000 young students run into jungle to join hands with the Communist Party of Thailand throughout the country. Yeah. The reason why we can count the number is because on the following years, the students who registered in the university disappeared. Around 20,000. So we know that many of them run and join those communist party armed struggle in the jungle. And that's the reason why we call them octoplists. Because they are the generation who actively participate in these two incidents coincidentally on October. So that's the reason we call them later the octoplists. คนเดือนตุลา the people who were active on October 1. The reason that why, if you ask that why student activists became very active during that time, I don't know about Malaysia. You can start asking yourself that why in Malaysia there were people like you and many of you active during that time. But in Thailand, as far as I'm concerned, there are three major reasons. The first reason is it's the first time that we have the mass educated middle class, but suppressed by authoritarian regime. In 1950, the first time that we have universities, mass university, Chulalongkorn and Thammasat University. These two, and not only these two, but also more than 10 others throughout the country, sponsored by America, in order to counter communists through the non-army process. So not only use the military against communists, but also promote education and social development in order to persuade people to remain with the government. So they were the byproduct of this anti-communist policy. So it's a dramatic expansion of higher education. Think about this first mass generation that they have a university degree. But after the graduation, there's no economic boom. There was no expansion of those in bureaucracy because it's very suppressive. So they were the first group who started to stand up to fight for their rights as a petty bourgeois, to be honest. At the beginning, they were not communists. They were young middle class who frustrated with the economic suppression. The second is the political frustration under the political suppression of the military dictatorship. And the last one, as I mentioned earlier, the influence and support of the Communist Party and also the leftist movement in the Western world. Because during the Vietnam War, there was a lot of information spread to Thailand and influenced and inspired the young people in Thailand to be a part of this leftist idea. At the beginning, they were very loose and non-radical, but during that 3 years, as I mentioned, they become more and more radical. And during the time that they were in jungle, it's quite different from those in Malaysia where you have very small jungle to run into. But in Thailand, there was a big area throughout the country. And young people spent nearly 10 years in the jungle, 5 to 10 years, minimum 5 years, or to 10 years in the jungle. So during these 5 or 10 years, they developed a network among themselves as a schoolboy network. They were very tight, and also they developed a very profound relationship with the rural people, with the ethnic minority in the northern, in the tribal area, or those with the rural, with the urban labor in the city. So they developed this kind of the political skill, political network during their time as an activist. Okay. However, after the Communist Party declined, and they have to return home because the Communist Party of Thailand, after the changing of the political environment, that there was no longer support from the International Communist Party. The Communist Party of Thailand declined, and they have to return. And the Communist Party, as they were Maoists, they didn't prepare to work in the city. So upon their return, nobody cultivated them. They were left unhandled. They were left lost in the city. And there were a lot of distrust among different groups of the leftist student activists because they didn't understand that why the Communist Party of Thailand abandoned them, and turned to collaborate with the Thai government. I'm not going to go to this detail, but because of that, upon their return, the leftist student movement declined for nearly a decade. However, within just 10 years, many of these people returned to politics and play a very active role in later political transition in democratization. And for me, if we're going to look at how these octoblists play a role in democratization in the later stage, I categorize into three stages. The first is during the democratic transition. The second is democratic consolidation and democratic backsliding, which we are all confronting in our country, in Southeast Asia and in many other democratic countries. By the time when I was at the university, the octoblists have already become the non-failure leftists. They're everywhere, as I already mentioned. In nearly all political parties, they'll become the young blood politician, political campaigners, spin doctor, and lobbyists. Not only the Liberal Party, but many conservative party or even the local opposition party, they all hire these young people. If you ask the question, why? They are everywhere. It's because it was the first time that Thailand have the regular election. And political parties sprung up without the human resource. The local opposition or even conservative party, they didn't have the people who know how to formulate political policy. They didn't have the people who can do lobbying. They didn't have people who know how to mobilize mass support. They didn't have people who would be able to connect between the rural people and the urban people. And octoblists is a unique group of generation who equip all these skills after they practice in the jungle and mobilizing the mass mobilization. So they're the only group of people who equipped with this unique set of skills. So every political party would like to have them. And they turn, and all of them who work in all political parties are all shining light as a liberal key man in those political parties. Try to promote the very progressive policy, even though it failed or success, but they were there. So for me, it's like, wow, they are everywhere. Not only in political party, but also in the NGO worker. But also in the NGO worker, in academia, in journalists, in artists, in singer, in writer. The song that Goran introduced us, he may be very old by that time in the video, but it's wrong. So they become pretty rich artists. One of this is the guy who got the Kanokrat Lertchoosakul. He's a national artist through his poem and his writing. Communists got the position as a national artist. How could this be? And we have seen this as Pinga Karawan, Surishay Jankimathor. I was his big fan. And all the songs that they did, leftists wrote, not only the song for life, the leftist song, but also they were the pioneer in the popular music as well. So they modified everything. The one person that I interviewed that I was very surprised that she turned to, after return, she worked when she was in the jungle, she worked in the cultural and drama section. So her role was to conduct the new song, the communist song in the jungle, organize the plays to entertain the young blood in the communist movement. Upon their return, what she did? She became a script writer in the television shows and become a very popular script writer in television show because not many people have this kind of skill and a lot of time to practice. Another one become the very successful classical music conductor. Why? Because during the time in the jungle, meanwhile his friend was in the front line fighting with Thai military. He was sent to China to study classical music for 5 years. So after he returned to the music school and got a first class honor because of the skill that he was trained in China. So after that, he became a very young, successful classical music conductor. So it's not only about leftist issue. It's about the very special, unique skill that the Thai leftists obtained during that time in the jungle. During that time, we were acting as a left activist. I'm not quite sure if this happened in other countries. But I think yes, Thailand is not exception. Like in Laos, in Vietnam, think about those who were sent to Russia and come back with a very educated profile, right? Not only successful in all this, but I just would like to point out those figures in the independent body. After the 1997 constitution, which they are a part of writing this, Thailand started a new body on check and balance. You name them. Human Rights Commission, elections, elected senator, consumer rights, Bank of Thailand, blah, blah, blah. And they were the one who get into it at the first place. Countless number of ex-leftists become the elected Senate. Nearly about 30 of them was the selected Senate. They were the Committee on the Human Rights Commission. They were a very successful member in the elected and consumer rights. They play a very crucial role. So for me, wherever I turn to, they are everywhere. Not only act as an individual, but in my books, if you look at what Goran have beautifully translated, this is where and when the Thai octoblists join each party and get a very important political position. I just would like to give an example on this one. In Moral Force political party, nearly 10 of them were there. And if you look at one chapter in my books, in the Thai Party, which organized by Thaksin Shinawatra, they were the very first member of this political party. When Thaksin started to ask about what is a new idea if I would like to organize political party, dozens of them ran to Thaksin from the very beginning. If you have heard any successful policy by Thaksin, you name them. It's all come from the brain of the Thai octopus. Universal health care is from there. Village fund is from there. You think about the benevolence housing is from there. You think about any other political policy is all from the Thai octopus. They have this kind of ideas for a long time. They kept on thinking about it for a long time. And it was the first time that it was put into practice. And that made Thaksin first government become very successful with the type of the policy platform. So I think in many other countries, they miss opportunity to make use of the former leftists. Not only as an individual, but in the different states of democratization, the octoblists play a very crucial role. In terms of democratic transition, in 1992, these octoblists also the first group who organized the mass support to fight against the military dictatorship. But not anymore in the name of the student activists. By that time, they were rich middle class. And we call this protest as a middle class mobile protest. middle class mobile protests. If you think back in 1992, it was the first time we have mobile phone. Can you remember? The big one like the water tank, heavy, and the pager. If you remember this technology. And who can have this? Rich people. And octoblists, they were rich by that time. So they were the one who support this use of technology. It was the first time that we have the live speed from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, from Bangkok to other provinces through this mobile phone. They opened the mobile phone and live the speed from Bangkok to other provinces. So this is the first time that we have seen the revival of the octoblists in pushing beyond the leftist activism into the liberal democracy. So by this time we can start thinking that their reputation is no longer the fairly leftist. They become a very active democratic fighter alongside with other political actors. So if we don't know their background, Thailand became very successful in 1992 with the classless protest. We have NGO, we have businessmen, we have bureaucrat, we have those in the different sector, academia, journalists join hands to fight against military. But in the reality, they are all friends. They all have the same rule as a left activist, just return as in different sectors. But if you understand the background, they are all the school board network. But by that time, we saw the collaboration between different sectors in fighting against military dictatorship. Later on, in the not only transition of democracy, these people in political party, in the independent body, they become the crucial actor in rooting or consolidating democracy in the later stage. They are the one who made possible to have political party, the mass-based political campaign, and also they promote human rights, campaigning for equality, social justice, but not in the name of leftists, in the name of NGO, in the ideology of communism. They campaign freedom of expression as a journalist. So we no longer know them as leftists. In my generation, if you don't study socialism or Marxist or Communist Party of Thailand, you would think that they are the civil society organization according to the theory of democratization, that once you have economic growth, you have middle class promote democracy. But in the reality now, they have the communist socialist group. They are not ordinary middle class promoted by the economic growth. So having seen this, we break through the ideology, we break through the concept of democratization of the liberal democracy. Okay. Also, there's also in other political transition that play a crucial role. I've already mentioned this. If we ask me why they successful in promoting their role in the different fields, in my book there are so many reasons, but I would like to point out in these two: fighting for social justice and equality. So I didn't even aware that there were leftists in that element. So when they portray this picture, when they portray this picture, not this picture, they told me that this is a democratic fighter. They were democratic fighters, not anything about leftist movement. The reason was there was no space left for the leftist movement. It's very reluctant for them to speak out about their past failure history. How could you tell your children that I'm the failed leftist, who failed from the beginning, failed in the jungle, and returned home as a failure? No. They start to rewrite their history. In my book, which may have been disagreed by several people, after 20 years, on the 20 years anniversary of the 6th October, Thongthai Lertchoosakul, one of the key leaders of the student activists during the student massacre in 6th October, he started his campaign calling for a small space for Octobliss to stay, for the young innocent student with their hand fighting for liberal democracy, social justice, and equality. He himself didn't mention about leftists in public at all. And that's very successful. It's very compromised. So everybody, whether you're left or right, you are whatsoever, you can join this commemoration. There's no right, no wrong, no failure, no success. And that was very successful. Their writing, they turned the history of 14 October into democratic movement, and they erased the leftist history into young innocent fighting for social justice. The leftist history become just a cultural activities. The one shown by Golan, you have seen as a big orchestra, right? And that was the revolutionary classical concert. It's become just a cultural event. It's not, they didn't talk anything about the Maoist idea, communist ideas. Communist activities become cultural activities rather than ideological activities. And it's become very trendy and fashionable among young people, talking about the leftists, but as the cultural issues rather than the political issues. The result of this shown in this survey. One of my friends done the survey among younger people in 2008. Asked the young people that what is 14 October and what is 6 October? The correct history is, this is of course democratic movement. But this is the failure leftist history, right? But young people, majority of them, nearly 90%, answered that this is democratic movement and this is also democratic movement. So that means they have already normalized, they have already decommunist the communist element from the leftist history. And that's one of the reasons that why the Thai leftists successfully stood up in the public without being threatened or being condemned by the public. However, the last part of my talk is about why they switch sides back and forth in the recent politics. On the one hand, some side with the yellow shirt and red shirt during the battle. And another period, some support youth movement in 2020, but some against. And recently, under the current government, those are in the red shirt twist to join hands with the traditional elite. Why? What this happened? This is the time when I start my PhD period. Some of my friends, my old comrades, support the red shirt movement, insist on pro-democratic democracy, anti-conservative establishment, or some who disagree with Thaksin start the 2-No campaign. No Thaksin, no military coup. But on the other hand, countless number of Octobliss, including the one you saw in the concert, Surichai Chandramadhara. He was in support of the Yellow Shirt movement, anti-Thaksin movement, anti-democratic youth in 2020, and invited and or accepted traditional elite as an alliance. They were in support of the military coup against Thaksin government. Surichai Chandramadhara was on the protest stage of the Yellow Shirt, singing the 14 October song, the revolutionary song, in support of the loyalist movement against the red shirt. We were like, what? How can in every of his song. Look at all these other figures. My respect Thirayut Bunmi, my respectable, or many other, or even the monk who I very respect. So how can we understand this? Not only support, they led this movement. Their strategy is if you gonna mobilize, because the Red Shirt mobilized the majority urban poor and also rural lower middle class. So they instead promote the strategy to promote the mass movement supported by royalists, ultra-nationalists, and religious groups. At the beginning, this is another research of mine. At the beginning, they thought that it just the mass support. But that was very dangerous because in the Thai political history, even Thai elite never ever mobilized ultra-conservative mass because they used to mobilize one on the 6th October massacre and they could not control it. What? These are mass organized. They, within no time, they know how to organize themselves. And it's out of control. At the end, many of the Octoberist leaderships in Yellow Shirt were abandoned by the ultra-loyalist mass. They took control over the movement, and later on, these people were marginalized from the Yellow Shirt. Many later show their regret, say sorry, and some turn into support of the Yellow Shirt later on, after several coups. On the other hand, lately, if you follow the Thai political situation, we are now having the new political party organized by the young people. I call it Orange Party because the former name have changed several times. They were dismantled for several times, so I call them Orange. Those on the Red Shirt before, either in support of the Orange Party or the Red Party, right? Some of them split out to support the Orange Party, some remain with the Red, with the Thai Rakta. However, very interesting that now the My Yellow Shirt and the My Red Shirt now shift to support the Orange political party because the Conservative Party failed. The pro-military or the Loyalist Party would not be able to maintain or get a seat in the election. So they have no choice and they turn to support the Orange Party. The most anticlimax, and I'm going to end my presentation, is this government 2 years ago. After these two parties joined in their election in order to fight against pro-military parties. After the election, the Orange Party gained the biggest seat, right? I think you all know. The Red Party came second. However, because of the constitution that allowed the Senate to vote for the Prime Minister, so the Senate rejected to vote for Orange. However, the Red Party switched to join hands with the conservative elites to get the vote from the Senate. So they organized the government. So nowadays, look at my senior friend. Look at three of them. Promin, the one who Gulan mentioned. Now he is a deputy prime minister. Phumtham Vechayachai, the very senior member of Communist Party. At that time, he is the Ministry of Defense. Ministry of Defense. Minister of Defense. And Phumtham and Promin Lertchoosakul. He is the manager of everything. He is the one who worked in support of provide the facility support for the new prime minister. And look at Promin, and look at Phumtham. I really like the gesture that he has in this picture. Look at this old communist. he has been obeyed by the military as a minister of defense. For me, this is the peak, the highest peak of the optimist in political power. How can we explain this? Sweet twist and turn. I haven't had the perfect conclusion. I'm still not satisfied by the conclusion that why they were like this. But I just would like to end my PowerPoint here to explain that why the Octoblists, maybe against democracy, twist and turn. My first argument is they were very diverse from the beginning. It's maybe my misunderstanding that they were Maoist leftists. It's maybe my mistake. Or maybe they successfully made me understand that they were unified Maoist party. But in the reality, they were very diverse. They were liberal democracy, neo-left, Maoist, communitarianist, so they were everything. I'll give you an example of my own father, who graduated. He was trained in Chinese school by his Chinese teacher from China. And that's the beginning of his political life. He was a very good son of the party, of the Communist Party. So for him, anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism, for him, anti-democracy from the beginning. But I misunderstand on this thing. Because he portrayed himself as a democratic fighter. He asked me one question, why are you in support of the Orange Party? How could you dare to support Orange Party? Orange Party termed themselves as a socialist party. But how can you be socialist if you support the liberal democracy? Election is a tool of the imperialists. Americans promote election in Thailand in order to stimulate, to provoke chaos in our country. Why you support election? So I came to realize that all I see here is the good son of the Communist Party. And what he agreed is the proletariat dictatorship. Right? From the beginning, he's agreed with the strong authority of the party in order to promote this, whatever, maybe social equality, justice. But he has that kind of idea in support of the proletariat dictatorship from the beginning. And he disagreed with election. He disagreed with liberal democracy from the beginning, which I didn't aware. So it's a kind of this very complex picture and layer of the communists in Southeast Asia revealed here. We are not like a Maoist Communist Party. We have a lot of elements as a Malaysian, as Thai Chinese, overseas in different countries. We mix and match a lot of elements in our socialist movement. So I misunderstand them from the very beginning. Another factor is newly developed diverse interests and conflict among themselves that they had during that time. We cannot underestimate this. The conflict that they had since that time lasts up until today. For example, three of the key figures in my books, Somsak, Thongchai, and Kasian Daichapura, although they are come from the same generation who encountered with the 6th October massacre, but they all have different ideas about socialism. On the one hand, Somsak may be very socialist, the most leftist. Kasian is very Thai Marxist. He read a lot about the Thai Marxists like Jit, Kumisak, and etc. He has a different elements of ideas about socialism. Meanwhile, Thongchai may be a bit more liberal in a sense. So they have different ideology from that time and later development in their academic life. So I'm gonna end here. I think you probably have more answer than I do because the situation in Malaysia not that much different, maybe in degree and in different form. But in order to understand the old left, influenced by either different communist party in the past, but in the changing political situation under the democratic backsliding, we think we have to reconsider our body of language about the leftists in the changing society. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor, for that excellent presentation that succinctly summarized, the key findings in the book, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions in your mind, and there are so many of you who are probably also involved in the student movements in Malaysia in the past. And there might be some similarities, but probably also a lot of differences. For instance, if we are talking about student movements, the leaders at that time in Malaysia, we also have a very powerful student activist leaders that reached the highest ranking in the political system in Malaysia, who is Anwar Ibrahim. But he's not a leftist, he's more Islamist. Yeah. So I would like to now open this session for any questions or comments that you would like to pose to Professor, and you can pose the questions or comments in Mandarin or English. Then if it is in Mandarin, then I'll translate it into English. Yeah. Anyone? Because we also have people from Singapore. Okay. Any questions from the floor? Yes. Yeah.
I'm just curious, like just now you mentioned the massacre that took place in 1973, and the ordinary people also involved, like mocking those students and even cheer when they were killed. So I was curious that how long did it take for them to accept them, for them to rebrand themselves from stigmatized leftists and become democratic fighters? You mentioned they are able to rebrand themselves to change the narrative and to make themselves appear as democratic fighters. I'm interested in how long it actually takes and why people accept them, their rebranding, why they are accepted. Because here we also interested in how to change the narrative, rebrand yourself from former communists to like democratic fighters. Yeah, that's my question.
Okay, thank you. Can I have maybe two more questions if there are any questions? Yes.
I'm more concerned about the current situation in Thailand now. You see, all the times, Thailand political is very, very much influenced by military power. I just wonder, what is the military power attitude towards the current government?
Towards the current government?
Yes. One more questions? Yes.
Geopolitics. What do you think about China in influencing populace the movement of leftists?
Okay. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you. It's all very challenging question. When I'm talking about the successful process in normalizing or in democratizing the leftist reputation, I think we have to look at from two layers. I look at first why the conservatives succeed in that time. It was not like in one day that turned people against the communists. It's both supported by the American military support, on the psychological war, right? To devilize the communist people through the different programs. Even in school, there was like a plate, the plate to eat food that have the communist as a devil picture. The student have to eat with that plate every day. So it's like a brainwashing for the Thai local people to go against communists. On the other hand, the Thai elite organized several ultra right-wing mass. On the one hand, there was the conservative artist called like a middle-class group number 4. They organized, they wrote the comics, they wrote the novel against the communism. They write a song, they sang a song, they have a lot of soap opera against the communism. On the other hand, the loyalist family organized the mass organization called Boy Scout. It's Boy Scout, you know Boy Scout, right? In other country, Boy Scout probably just a civil organization. But in Thailand, it was organized, used as a mechanism to penetrate into locality and influence the communist, anti-communist insurgency through this. So it's become a paramilitary group in every area throughout the country. And in the city, it was a hooligan gang organized by the secret police. We call 13 Gang Red Bull Group, vocational students to use the violence against the student. So that picture represents how all this successful process of the American joint hand with the Thai conservative elites. So how unfold all these ideas that have already been there for a long time? We're thinking about here, the stigma is the communist equal to Chinese, right? At that point of time. So maybe in Thailand we didn't have that because both Chinese and Thai can be communists. And the Chinese at the beginning, Thai Communist Party of Thailand were very Chinese. The first generation of the Thai communists were either Chinese and who speak Thai properly, but they control the leadership inside the Communist Party. And the student who joined Communist Party from the beginning has to adjust a lot. But at the end, they successfully Thainized the communists through the publishing house and whatsoever. So come to the question of how to unfold all this. I think there are 3 layers that we need to understand. On the one hand, at the international level, communist movement declined throughout the world. So for elites, communism is no longer a threat. Particularly like in Thailand, that elite have learned that without the international support, it's impossible for the Communist Party to exist. Thailand never have a long history of the mass movement. Unlike in Vietnam, they have a long, 1,000-year history of the farming movement, right? They have a long history of the ordinary people organized by maybe the elite to fight against China. That's a long time ago, right? So they have the spirit of guerrillism. But in Thailand, the Communist Party tried a lot and worked very hard to mobilize, organize rural people to be a part of the movement, and it was not that easy. So the Thai elite have been long aware after the amnesty process that it's not easy for the Communist Party to revive. So for Thai elites, they are no longer true. Communists disappear for quite some time. Nobody, even they were leftists, they were no longer want to mention themselves as a leftist. I remember when I was at the university 30 years ago, if you're gonna organize a Marxist group, it's very difficult. That's a Marxist reading group. It's very difficult just to mention the word of Marxist. It's not illegal, but everybody was very scared of being labeled as a communist Marxist. And the Thai people, the understanding of communism is very strange. Thai government successfully labeled communists equal to authoritarian. When they talk about communists, they point at Russia, China, Vietnam, they are all authoritarian. So the Thai people not only dislike communists in the sense of socialists, but a sense of authoritarian. So it's very hard for either of this generation or later generation to refer themselves in the new society. And another layer is the changing of the political situation to become more liberal democracy. So under liberal democracy, it's a lot playful. You can be anything under liberal democracy, right? And you can be politically active. So it's a lot easier. The last thing is about race. That's the different condition between Malaysia and Thailand. Religious, race, ethnic. We don't have that in Thailand. Muslim is just 5% population in Thailand. So Chinese and Thai is majority. So in order to convince the whole general population that we are no longer communists, is a lot easier than here, right? So maybe my answer is not complete, but that is a similarity and differences. How long is it take to rebrand themselves? Sorry. I think since 1990s. So that means only 10 years afterward, only 20 years afterward. I remember on the 20 years commemoration, once Thongchai mentioned, like, delete the word of leftist out of the commemoration. Different political parties even joined the commemoration. Even the Conservative Party, because they also would like to reconcile with this powerful new generation. Yeah. For the second question, military power. What are they thinking about the current government? You know, it's very hard because I try to understand elite for a long time, particularly the conservative and traditional elites. There are several arguments that we are all trying to figure out whether it's right or wrong. The first one is the military and the traditional elite fail in election, so they have to find the alliance, or for them they're not Thai Thaksin is not their alliance. It's their mechanism to run their power in parliamentary politics. So if you look at the deal, that negotiation between Thaksin and the government, even though in the picture Phumtham may shake hands with the army and the army seems to be very obey to Phumtham, but in the reality, when you will look at the military policy reform that they promised from the very beginning, the first important thing is cut the budget of military. The second crucial one is cancel or reject the military conscription, because this is an issue that the Orange Party campaigned for a long time. And in the early campaign, the Pheu Thai also, we will cancel the military conscription, but nothing happened. That means who is on the upper hand? The deal that Thaksin government would like to have is first to have him back home. Second, to have his daughter as a prime minister. The third that he still haven't got it is to have his sister back to Thailand. Yingluck Shinawatra is still in other country. But for the military and Thai elite, look at him as the inferior partner rather than the equal partner. This is the first scenario. This is the first argument. The second argument is they are equal partner, because it's impossible for the military-backed party, which is called Phumthai Thai, we call it a blue party, because blue is a symbol of the royal family. The blue party is not easy for blue party to gain the majority seat in the House of Parliament. Without Pheu Thai, it's maybe not possible for the conservative elite, traditional elite and military to control the parliament. And the last one is about the future of the Thai government, right? Because in the next election, if we talk about who are now in support of Orange, I've already mentioned, younger generation, which can count probably 20% of the total population, very sooner or later. The My Yellow Shirt, the My Red Shirt, who were disappointed that the Pheu Thai joined hands with the conservative elite. So it have a very potential that the Orange will take control, get majority in the seat of the member of parliament. What Pheu Thai and the conservative elite gonna do? We don't really know. So next election gonna be a very, very crucial election for Thai politics. Whether Orange should win or not. If they win, what the conservative elite gonna do with this? How they gonna suppress the formulation of the government by the Orange? If they successfully suppress them, what's the mass support gonna do? Will they just sit there and accept their suppression, or they gonna stood up? And what is the role? What the Orange Party gonna do? Will they just act as political party, or will they step down on the street and organize the mass rally, push forward the radical change? We have no idea, but it's gonna be very fun. Fun in the sense as an observer, as a political scientist. I mean, because in all of your country, in every country in Southeast Asia, you all have encounter with radical change. You have no monarchy. Okay. Yeah. But no. I mean, you have no absolute. Monarchy would have absolute power, right? You have gone through the radical change with the old elite disappear. Rural elite. But in China, we haven't had that kind of experience before. The 300 years old bureaucrat remain there. The monarchy lasts for many hundred years there, right? So we cannot imagine that how the radical change gonna happen or not. But for me as a political scientist, this is the only moment of time in the Thai political history that change is possible. But I'm just a political scientist who always know after the event. I'm always clever after the event happened. Okay, the last question is the geopolitics about Octoblist. I think in every country, the former leftists divided into either liberal or either pro-China or not pro-China. I think it's very, very common. If you ask me why, after 30 years of change, China have changed a lot as well. We cannot point out that China is a dictatorship military, dictatorship or old-style authoritarian. No, they become very competitive, right? They have a lot more efficiency, a lot more legitimacy among people in their own country. And that's why several old comrades look up to them. They have reason, they have rationale. On the other hand, those who have exposed to the liberal democracy experience with the Western world, they experience a different story. So even though they were both fight together in the past, maybe all support one side or the other, but now things have changed. So in the reality, it's understandable that why they are very fragmented on the geopolitical issues among the old comrades. And the attachment in the Thai case. At the end of the Communist Party, some live with a lot of conflict with the Chinese-oriented party leader. And they turn to probably disagree with the mainland China now. But on the other hand, there are many of them who leave the party with respect. That they agree and they really admire those Chinese-oriented leadership who dedicate their life to fight in the jungle for the entire life. So they were different. And upon the return, they shape how the Octoblists have ideas with the liberal world and the mainland China.
Okay, any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a saying that who you support in politics has less to do with what positions or you support or what ideology you support, or more about who you hate more. Like for example, in America, you vote Republican not because you agree with their policy, but because you hate the Democrats more, you want to own the libs, all that. Or similarly, if you vote Democrats not because you agree with their position, but because you hate Republican or you hate Trump more. So in the context of Thai politics, as an outsider, I see that I see the similar situation that the more important that denominator is who you hate more. You hate Thaksin, even you call yourself a supporter of liberal democratic, but you can tolerate coup because you really hate Thaksin. You want to remove him or with whatever you can. Similarly, if you hate military, you want to do whatever to reduce your influence and all that. So is it true that in Thailand politics, it's the more common factor in your political position is who you hate more? Thank you.
Thank you. 还有其他人要问什么问题吗？可以用中文。Yeah.
Never mind. I'll ask in English. Doctor, as doctor has said, the former octavists has no longer call themselves leftists or liberals. And I wonder what are the relationship between these former octavists with the royal family in Thailand. Right? Because while they no longer call themselves leftists, but a lot of them still, like doctors say, practice liberal ideals. Like freedom of expression, like social justice. And from my perspective, the core value of liberals are often at odds with the core structure of monarchy. So I wonder what is their relationship like in Thailand. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you.
I have two questions. I'm just curious. So first of all, may I ask, is there any Thai version of your studies, Doctor? Thai
version of the book.
Yes, because as I know, it's only two in Thai language. Yes, because as I know, young generation in Thailand nowadays, they are quite concerned about the society and they are brave to critique the government and also the royal family. Yeah. And then this is my question. Is there any reason or you are in progress? And second is, because you mentioned your father are authorities, and then later you grew up, you become a professor, and then you do a study about this. So did your father know your study, and then what is his comment? Yeah, I'm just curious.
Answer your question. I have proper answer for you. After this project, I studied the red shirt and yellow shirt. I did the research on that. And after that, my recent research is on the youth movement. So I see now that we're divided into three groups of people, active people in the Thai society. The red shirt, the yellow shirt, and the younger people. Of course, the red shirt and red shirt follow what you mentioned, hatred politics. They vote according to their hate, their disagree. They vote orange because they hate red, but they don't have their own party, right? Those in red vote orange because they're disappointed with Thaksin, even though they used to support them. Because they fail with the political party that they used to have. But for the younger generation, I'm not sure, but for me, I have a very wishful and hopeful thinking for the young Thai people. They are the only generation who successfully constitute their own political party. And their own political party try to be different from the earlier ideological conflict, color conflict, and try to promote the policy-oriented without affiliating with the old elite, either the communist, either the traditional elite, or either the rich. I can say that they are not compromised. They're not compromised just in order to get power. They, as far as I'm concerned, they say no to compromise only in exchange of the government position. So that means the younger people, they still vote for the party that they have hope to represent their demand, their benefit whatsoever. I can say that because this Orange Party is still not in government yet. But one day, for example, if last time they were in government, probably I have in the same situation like you. That when you're gonna take action, you need to take action more, you should not be compromised. So as far as I'm concerned, the younger generation still act different from the hatred politics theory. They still have vote for the party that they can negotiate, they can influence. Because I have another article coming out about the relationship between younger people and the Orange Party. That they are not like it's a love-hate relationship. They criticize party all the time, and party have to adjust according to the criticism of the young people. There were the political participation, which is not the loyal party member, but more of the loyal opposition. That they criticize the party, but they still vote for the party. But they can reject the party anytime. I interview many young people. They say they can say no to Orange Party anytime if Orange Party don't act according to their demand. So that means so far the relationship is still very healthy in the sense that they are not either dominate one another. So this is my maybe very naive answer as the rosy picture that I still see between the relationship between both of them. Another question is very interesting about the lawyer family and the Thai octopus. It's very funny. From the beginning, before 14 October, can you imagine the young King Rama IX had a very profound, good relationship with the student activist. When my mother was young at Chulalongkorn University, every time before the exam, the whole family of the king will go to the hall, the auditorium hall. The king plays saxophone, the queen plays piano. The whole 4 kids sing the song to entertain the student at Chula to prepare for the exam. What's that? What's this? My mother always have this kind of picture and tell me that how wonderful her life in university and what's a good relationship that they have with the king. Why he did such a thing? As a young king, under the domination of very powerful military dictatorship, he seek for alliance. In his speech to Chulalongkorn University students on the graduation day, he always said that young people is the hope for the country. You are very powerful to make change. This quote has been repeatedly used by the Octoblists during the 14th October in their campaign against military dictatorship. They perceived that the royal family were on their side. And it was like that on the 14th October. However, the relationship turned sour after the Communist Party became dominate the young student activists. Once they turned leftist and the whole situation in Indochina turned very severe and very frightening for the royal family, the relationship between the student activists and the monarch turned sour. And the monarch, according to my father, was the story that my father said that the traditional elite were behind the mass massacre. Is wrong or right, I have no idea. But that was a story that the leftists have after 6th October. Since then, the relationship between the Octoblists and the monarch is not good. And for the Orange Party, to be honest, for me, they are not leftist, not anything close to leftist, even though they term their party as social democrat. They just campaign with the rhetoric of the welfare state. But in the reality, that policy is far from close to anything socialist. But in Thailand, being liberal is radical enough for the traditional elites. Because if you